Welcome, students. Today we are going to learn about the menstruation cycle, the very important part of female reproductive system. Students, hurry up. The session is going on and it is very important session in biology, and it is very curiosity of the age of girls from 10 to 17 years, how the menstruation takes place scientifically. That's why from standard 7 to standard 10, all over boys and girls should know about the menstruation cycle scientifically. Students, look at the blackboard. I have drawn the diagrammatic representation of menstruation cycle. Students, female reproductive system undergoes changes at puberty. What is puberty? Whenever at the age of 10 years to 17 years of a girl, the secondary sexual characters are arise, like the increase in height, increase in breast size, menstruation starts. At that period, the puberty, at the age of the puberty from 10 years to 17 years, those changes repeat at the interval of every 28 to 30 days, and that is called as the menstruation cycle. Students, these repetitive changes are called as menstruation cycle. The repetition of this cycle is very oftenly after the 28 to 30 days. Students, menstruation cycle is a natural process. Menstruation cycle is a natural process and controlled by the four hormones. Controlled by the four hormones, and that four hormones are very important to carry all over the menstruation cycle. Students, that four hormones are called as follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, luteinizing hormone, LH, then estrogen and progesterone. There are four types of hormones, namely follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, estrogen and progesterone. One of the several follicles in ovary starts to develop along with the oocyte. Millions of ovaries are present, and from that the oocyte present in it, under the impact of follicle stimulating hormone, this developing follicle stimulating hormone secretes the estrogen. Endometrium of a uterus starts to develop during the first cycle. Students, look at the diagram. This is the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland, where the pituitary gland is present. Pituitary gland is present in the brain, and that pituitary gland is the boss of all the chemical glands, endocrine glands, and it secretes the follicle growth hormones, and that follicle growth hormones are follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, progesterone and estrogen. This is called as the endocrine system. Whenever one of the follicle is taken in a consideration, at that time the inner lining of the uterus is called as the endometrium. Students, the uterus is the part of female reproductive system, and that female reproductive system's part uterus, in which the baby's development takes place after a pregnancy, that part is called as the uterus, and the inner lining of the uterus is called as the endometrium. whenever there is a development of endometrium, at that time, endometrium of a uterus starts to develop during the first cycle and regenerate. See, changes in the uterus, students. These are the changes in the uterus from first day to 28 days. From first days to 28 days. The cycle starts from first day. This is called as the period of menstruation. Whenever the period comes or the menstruation or the menarche starts, from first day to fourth day, there is a bleeding from vagina, that is the outgrowth of the female reproductive part, called as the period of menstruation, starts from first day to fourth or fifth day. It varies from woman to woman or girl to girl according to the physical health, which type of diet she takes, which type of exercise he does. That depends on the girl's physical fitness. This period of menstruation is about 1 to 4 to 5 days. First day to 5 days. Then this period is very painful period, and there is a stomach ache and the back ache and the severe pains during that period. All the girls are facing these problems. That's why you should take the balanced diet. You should do exercise regularly, and then your menstruation will regular. See the diagrammatic representation. These changes occurs in the ovary. The upper side diagram, I am showing this. The upper side diagram showing the diagrammatic representation of changes in ovary. Changes in ovary takes place. This upper part of the diagram you see in the diagram. These represent the changes in the ovary. See, first of all, the follicles, then the ovules, then the role of estrogen and progesterone. Later on, I will explain the corpus luteum and corpus albicans. See, students, the next, during the subsequent cycles, under the effect of estrogen and progesterone, students, these are the female sexual hormones, and testosterone is the male sexual hormone, and estrogen and progesterone we learned in the previous standard 9th standard. Progesterone and estrogens are said to be the female sexual hormone. Because of that hormones, the secondary sexual characters begins, and that's why menstruation in girls or women also takes place. Students, under the influence of estrogen, the developing oocyte is released. This is the development of that follicle in the oocyte, and under the influence of estrogen, the development takes place, and subsequent development when takes place, this is called as the ovulation. At that time, the ova or ovule is released, and that is called as the ovulation. This is called as the ovulation, and every month one develop ova, or we call it as a oogenesis. The development and release of ova is called as the oogenesis. Genesis means to give birth. Genesis means produce. In biology, genesis means produce. That is why after the subsequent development, one ova is released, and after that it bursts under the effect of luteinizing hormone and corpus luteum. Development of oocyte is released, and this is called as the ovulation, and remaining tissues of the bird's follicles. And whenever only one ova is released through the cycle, only one ova is developed and released. Whenever the wall is burst, only one ova is released, and this process is called as ovulation, and the remaining part develops into the corpus luteum. See students, the diagram is given, page number 31. Look at the diagram 3.21. Observe on the blackboard. Look at the blackboard and pay attention. During the ovulation, only one ova is released and developed, but the remaining regenerated part is developed into the corpus luteum. See the corpus luteum. And that is why corpus luteum starts to secrete the progesterone, and corpus luteum undergo the development and release the chemical that is nothing but the hormone, and that hormone is called as progesterone and estrogen. Corpus luteum under the influence release the progesterone and estrogen. No doubt, progesterone and estrogen are female sex hormones. Look at the diagram. Are you getting my point? Yes or no? Write in a chat box. Are you getting my point? Are you understanding the diagrammatic representation? Then write and comment in the chat box. Corpus luteum. See, all over first diagrammatic representation I explain you from the follicle up to the corpus luteum, up to the secretion of progesterone and estrogen. This is the upper part of the diagrammatic representation of diagram. Then remaining tissue burst follicle forms the corpus luteum, and corpus luteum starts the progesterone, and endometrial glands secrete their secretion under the effect of progesterone. See the endometrium. What is meant by endometrium? Endometrium. Students, endometrium is the inner lining of the uterus. Inner lining where the whenever there is a pregnancy, the baby is there, and that is called as the uterus. And the inner lining of the uterus. See the inner lining of the uterus where the baby is the fetus development takes place. That is called as the embryology, and that part is called as the endometrium. Under the influence of endometrium, all the reactions, all the secretion happens, and endometrium again secretes the hormone that is called as the progesterone under the inner wall of the uterus. Endometrium secretes the progesterone, and then such endometrium is ready for the implantation of embryo. Students, when endometrium secretes the progesterone, at that time the uterus is ready to develop an implant or the embryo. Students, the branch of biology which deals with the study developmental stages of the embryo or the fetus, that is called as the embryology, and endometrium is ready to implant the embryo. Whenever male female gamete, there is a union of male female gamete, and the male releases sperms into the vagina, that is the exterior outgrowth, exterior opening. At that time, whenever there is a fertilization takes place, at that time male gamete and female gamete unite to form a zygote, and that the cell division takes place, and that embryo comes in that uterus, and developmental stages takes place in the uterus. Students, look at the diagram 3.21. First the period of menstruation, then the period of, look at the diagram, first 4 to 5 days are The bleeding takes place through the vagina of the females. At that time, the personal hygienic habit is very important. Whenever there is a bleeding, continuous bleeding from vaginal opening, then there is a painful feeling in the girls, and they feel tired, and that is why the personal hygienic habit and total rest is very important. Nowadays, working women at far away from the home and whole day they are at the working places. At that time, the personal hygienic habit is very important. Clean your genitals. It may be male or female. Clean the genitals time to time, and that is why there is no chances of any infection, urinary tract infection, and that infection. That is why personal hygienic habit of the private organs, that are the genitals, is very important, students. Look at the diagram. Then the 5th to 12th or 13th days, the period of regeneration of endometrium. Students, whenever menstruation cycle takes place, the whole assembly inside the uterus is thrown out from the bleeding. That is why regeneration. That is why the period of regeneration, again the assembly takes place. The inner wall of the uterus is prepared for the embryo development, for the fetus. Whenever pregnancy takes place, the development of embryo takes place in that uterus. That is why after the menstruation, from 5th day to 12th day, there is a period of regeneration of endometrium, and from 14th day to 16th or 17th day, there is an ovulation period where the ovule is completely grown and ready for the development. And again, from the day 18 to 28, the period of secretion of endometrium. So many biochemical reactions are happening in our body, and like that, in the inner wall of the endometrium, the hormones are secreted under the influence of pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is present in the brain, and under the influence of pituitary gland, all the hormones are secreted, and during the time, day 18 to 28, again the period of secretion of endometrium. Again, there is a preparation of the inner wall of the uterus and the secretion of the hormones, and there is a ready to form the assembly in the uterus and ready to accept the fetus. That is called as the period of secretion of endometrium. Students, remember, pay attention. 1 to 5 days, there is a period of menstruation. After 6th day to 12th day, period of regeneration of endometrium. Regeneration, that is the formation. Regeneration means the formation of endometrium. Then after 13th to 17th day, there is an ovulation period. Look at the diagram. Ovulation, there is a burst, and that one oogenesis, by the process of oogenesis, one ovum is ready, and that is why whenever there is a union or the copulation or the intercourse between male and female, at that time, whenever there is fertilization, then and then the pregnancy may occur. Otherwise, all the matter inside the uterus is thrown out through that vaginal exterior opening of the vagina, and that is why all the content is released along with the blood, and bleeding takes place, And whenever there is a pregnancy, there is a temporary stoppage of the menstruation. After marriage, whenever there is a chances of pregnancy, the temporarily this menstruation cycle stops. Why the menstruation cycle stops? A question may arise in your mind that why the menstruation cycle stops if the oocyte is not fertilized within the 24 hours. Students, when the oocyte is not fertilized, whenever the oocyte is not fertilized, then 24 hours, whenever the oocyte is not fertilized, then the corpus luteum becomes inactive. Look at the diagram. I have shown the corpus luteum. Whenever there is no fertilization, there is no copulation or no fertilization of male-female gamete, at that time, the corpus luteum, which secretes the pregnancy hormones, these are also called as the pregnancy hormones, also called as the female sexual hormones. At that time, whenever in 24 hours there is no fertilization, at that time the corpus luteum becomes inactive and there is no secretion of the hormones progesterone and estrogen, and at that time the corpus luteum forms into corpus albicans. Corpus luteum convert into corpus albicans, and there is no secretion of progesterone and estrogen. That's why there is no pregnancy. At that time, corpus luteum is inactive, or whenever there is repeated cycle, at that time such happens, and that is why the endometrium starts to degenerate in the absence of these hormones. And whenever these hormones are absent, then endometrium starts to starts to degenerate, that is thrown out and discarded out through vagina, and this is called as the menstruation. This endometrium is discarded, and that is called as the menstruation. And unfertilized ovum are also discarded through the vagina, through that endometrium inner lining, and the unfertilized egg along with the bleeding degenerated from the vagina, and that we call as the menstruation. Bleeding continues approximately for 5 days. I have shown in the diagram 5 days the menstruation cycle takes place. Look at the diagram. First to 5 days, approximately, it varies girl to girl or woman to woman. I already discussed before that it depends 1 to 5 days or 1 to 4 days or 1 to 3 days. It depends upon the health of the girl, either which type of diet she takes, which type of physical fitness she have, because various types of bleeding processes takes place. Some girls are suffers from 5 days bleeding, some girls are suffering the cycle 4 days, 5 days, that we call as the menstruation. The bleeding continues approximately for 4 to 5 days, and this we call as the menstruation, and the first menstruation we call it as the menarche. Then, unless the oocyte is fertilized, the embryo is implanted. Students, whenever there is a fertilization, this is the female gamete and male gamete from the male reproductive system. The sperms are released into the vaginal tract and up to the follicle tube, and the fertilization takes place. Zygote form, and at that time the corpus luteum is very active and produce the female sex hormones called as the progesterone hormone and the estrogen hormone. See, in the first case, whenever there is no fertilization, then corpus luteum becomes inactive and converts into corpus albicans. But whenever there is a fetus, that is the embryo, at that time, the corpus luteum secretes and temporarily the menstruation cycle stops because there is an implantation in the embryo. There is embryo development. Embryo is developed in the uterus, and that's why 9 months the development of baby takes place, and at that time the menstruation cycle totally stops. After the breastfeeding from the pregnancy to 1 year period, there is no menstruation cycle occurs. That menstruation cycle stops temporarily. Otherwise, in case of girls, the menstruation cycle lasts up to the 45 to 50 years. 45 to 50 years. Whenever the menstruation cycle totally stops, at that situation, the scientifically we call as menopause. Menopause, that is the stoppage of the menstruation cycle. Totally at that time, at the age of the 45 years to 50 years. That may be variable. In some women, the 45 years, the menstruation cycle stops. And in some women, the menstruation cycle stops at the age of 50 years. In some cases, at the age of 47 years, it may be variable according to the health of that female or according to the health of the woman. Are you getting my points, students? Are you understanding the menstruation cycle? It is so easy and important. Just you observe the diagrammatic representation and attend my session very carefully and attentive. Listening is very important, and this is very easy. Students, there is higher possibility of infection during this period, all over period, and due to such reasons, there is a need of rest and along with the special personal hygienic habits. And I explain you in this session what is menstruation cycle and what are the scientific steps of menstruation cycle and what is the importance of menstruation cycle. Menstruation cycle is a natural process and occurs after every 28 to 30 days. A repetitive changes takes place and at the interval of 28 to 30 days. In some women, it may comes after the 28 days. In some women, it comes after the 25 days. In some cases, it comes after the 30 days. Varies from woman to woman. So, in your mind, you might have doubts about why such happens. In case of me, I am suffering from the pains. Students, in this session, I clear your all doubts. Yes or no? Yes. And you understand the menstruation cycle completely scientifically. Write the diagram. Draw the diagram of menstruation cycle in your homework for standard 10. I am giving the homework for standard 10. Draw a neat label diagram, diagrammatic representation. It's so easy for understanding. And by writing you recite the names of the hormones, and for 7th to 9th classes, take the menstruation cycle paragraph and read aloud and write the names of the hormones and the functions of the hormones. I hope you better understand the concept of menstruation cycle scientifically, diagrammatically. Whenever you draw the diagram, your photogenic memory is very active. Whenever there is a picture form or the diagrammatic form, you remember better and instantly your memorization takes place, and that's why no figure, no marks, no diagram, no understanding in the biology. Next time we will learn about the modern techniques of fertilization for standard 10th students.